It's the excitement that there is so much potential. It's like looking at it and knowing that I have so much road ahead of me.
Peaks and valleys. Let's get it. Let's get a win.
Then I proceeded to completely bomb another tournament. I keep finding myself devastated by my awful tournament rounds, where afterwards I'm like, who is this guy that's three-putting all his birdie looks, that's trying new lines in his tournament rounds, that's going off the rails and getting a 10 on a par 4? This series is going to follow me from right now, which is April of 2024, to the future until I win. I mean win in MA2, which is intermediate amateur, and I mean winning after that in MA1, which is advanced amateur. If I can get a win in MA1, and that will be a huge milestone. MA2 win is a huge milestone also, because I've been trying to get that for a long time. But if I can get a win in MA1, to me, that is the peak of my disc golf journey that I can foresee right now. I don't know if there would be anything above that ever someday, but I'm so far from that right now with things that is a huge mountain for me, and that's my goal. That's what this series is going to cover as well. From here on, and I'll go through in this series the things that I'm doing, the things that I'm thinking about, the people that I'm learning from, and what I'm doing in my practice, and also how things go in tournaments, and I'll cover some of that. So hopefully at some point, other people, you guys can watch this and maybe take some value from it, and maybe it can also help in your journey if you are on a similar journey in disc golf, or even if it's in another sport or another part of life. Maybe something of this journey that I'm taking will be able to help you, and that's what I'm hoping for. I consistently failed to perform up to my ability in tournament settings. Between my 2 rounds in this weekend's tournament, I started listening to an audiobook called Golf is Not a Game of Perfect. It's been recently recommended. I've seen it in a few disc golf YouTube videos of some popular content creators. I've seen it in a lot of places lately, so it's just kind of popping up as a great book to read that helps with the mental game and the way to think about disc golf. I started listening to that between my tournament rounds. There's a lot of great stuff in that book. I think it's about an hour and a half long on the audiobook. I've now listened to it through twice. There's just so much in there that's great, and hard to remember all of it, of course, on one listen. And it's really got me trying to think in a different way to kind of reset and approach the game of disc golf completely differently than I ever have. When I look back, I realize that when I started disc golf, my focus was to drive well enough to park the holes as much as possible to get birdies. That's literally what it was. Putting was an afterthought. Putting was something I didn't like to do, didn't want to do, so I literally wanted to park the holes, and that was my goal. I threw mostly forehand, and I could get up to about 300 feet, and I was proud of that. I would go on courses, and the 300-foot holes, I would try to park them as much as possible so I wouldn't have to putt, or maybe I had 15-foot putts and try to make those. And even my upshots were really bad. I couldn't upshot with a putter for a long time. It's embarrassing even to think back on, but the fundamentals of the game I did not start with, is what I'm realizing. And first time I ever played disc golf was 10 years ago, and I've been a little more serious the last 3 years. Started playing tournaments in 2021 and learned backhand and really started expanding my game at that point. But I never prioritized putting and upshots. I learned upshots later, and I've become better at them over the years, slowly, and I'd say that they're okay, they're adequate. And my putting, I constantly have known that it was my weak spot, and I needed to work on it, so I have, and I've practiced and all that, but I've never prioritized those two things. It's always been more of a thought of, if I get on the disc golf course, I'm trying to park, and that's what's fun to me. Trying to hit the different lines and learn the different throws, and as great as that is, I've never prioritized the short game and putting. And listening to this audiobook, Golf is Not a Game of Perfect, the author talks about any golfer should practice at least 70% of their time should be spent on short game and putting. So he says it as, to be in from 120 yards and in for golfers. So I think I would relate that to maybe 180 to 200 feet for disc golf. So 200 feet in. I'm realizing that I've never ever done that. And so when I get into tournaments and I'm getting all these strokes from just being a little bit off on the approaches and then struggling with putting, but I'm out driving most of the people that I'm playing with, and I'll have, the best drive off the tee and then have a 3-putt and go from birdie to bogey. I'm realizing there's a reason for that. That's not on accident. It's not just that I'm worse at that. Maybe it is. Maybe it comes easier for some people. But it's more that I've never prioritized that, and I've never approached the game that way. So I will literally go and play with people that I could probably drive 100 feet farther than, and they will just kill me in tournament rounds, just not even close to the same score. Sometimes I might beat them if I'm really on that day, and that's the inconsistency as well. So the inconsistency in my putting and short game just means overall that I'm inconsistent. If I'm off a certain day, then I can shoot a 10 over when sometimes I can shoot a 5-6 under on that course or whatever. And so disc golf to me is not just disc golf. It's not just throwing plastic. It represents something to me that it is a measure of my value. Whether that's good or bad, it just kind of is. I would love to think, no, I shouldn't value myself off of that. But I have taken it on as something that represents my value. And that's not because it makes me a good or bad person or whatnot, but it represents the work that I've put into something that I am dedicated to and something that I have goals to improve on. So if I improve on it, then I am succeeding at my goal. If I don't, then I'm not succeeding at my goal. I'm not succeeding in general. And so it has become something that is a benchmark for me and reflects whether I am working hard at it or whether I'm not. And it is going to show whether I am capable of improvement and reaching my goals. Because I'm not totally in belief that I am, and I'm just being honest. Because there's been a lot of times through my life that I don't think that I've followed through. I don't think that I have reached my goals. I don't think that I have persevered and overcome some obstacles to ultimately reach a goal that was really, really hard to reach. I'm being pretty super honest right now, but I think a lot of my successes in life has been maybe from talent, not necessarily athletically, but talent or maybe smarts, and it's been more that, I feel, than it has been perseverance and grit and training and practice. Sure, maybe I'm being a little bit hard on myself, but most people are their worst critic, or their toughest critic. So to go back, a little bit of backstory on how I got started in disc golf and how I have always, how I approach the game from the beginning. I think the way that you approach from the beginning obviously sets off, where your journey is going to take you. If you're going 90-degree direction from another person when you get started, you're not going to end up in the same place, or at least get to those places in the same time or the same manner. So with that said, I am going to focus on the short game and the putting game almost only. I've trimmed down my bag and actually started a new bag, basically with only putters and approach discs, and I'm going to go out and play probably a short round today, and I like to just stop off and play sometimes, and it's already nagging at me, just to add one mid-range, add one fairway, because I go out to a course and I need to be able to drive a little farther. It's really nagging at me already, and my psyche is just fighting that idea, and that's the point. I need to break that. And what I need to do, and what I plan to do also, is go to some courses, because not all the courses are short pitch and putt, of course. Those are very few, actually. But the local courses that are longer, what I plan to do is go and not go from the tee, but walk up to a good spot that I find I have a good practice line, whatever it may be, at about 200 or 180 or 160, 140, whatever, and throw from there on each of the holes, and still play the course, but play it closer and just play it for that putt and approach, just to focus on that. And I think I want to try to focus on that for the next 2 weeks. I have a tournament 2 weeks from now, and it is an NADGT, and it is in Delta, Colorado at Confluence Park. And I just don't want to be embarrassed again, I guess I should say. I've got a lot people around here that I sometimes will play with in casual rounds, and they think I should move up in division, when I actually, last tournament, played under my rating, and so brought my rating down farther. My rating isn't even close to the top of my division, so it's just not even close. I don't need to be competing with the next higher level when I've got so much to work on, to fix, to even compete in my own level, because I was towards the bottom of my own division this last tournament, and the one before that, which are both local courses that I know really well, and I play well at often. So, and then that kind of ties in some with another theme of the book, is that you can play well. A lot of players may play well in their casual rounds, and they get into a normal round and they don't play well, and they wonder why. That comes down to a lot of mental things, the routine of the throw and having a clear mind when you're about to throw. So it's kind of interesting that this book is talking about a lot of things that I actually have considered, or I feel like I've figured out on my own. And those are things like, when I have a thought while I'm throwing, it always turns out bad. And so this book actually talks a lot about that, and that the author tells all of his the people that he consults about golf, he tells them that they're not allowed to have a thought, a swing thought, I think he calls it, basically a thought during their swing. And so in disc golf, it's similar with what you're doing, and he also talks about just focusing on target and not having any mechanical thoughts at all while you're in a round. And so I'm also going to be continually working on that, because just that is going to make a big difference in my game. Please feel free to comment on this video about anything that you think might help my journey, and any tips or advice that you might have for getting your first win or just improving. I appreciate it. I appreciate any interaction that we might be able to have about this, and I hope that you enjoy the series, and I hope someday we can look back on these and smile and just enjoy looking back on the journey, because that's the big, of course, it's the journey, not the destination. And I actually do know that in this. Sometimes when I have a horrible round or a horrible tournament, as bad as it is and as devastated as I feel, I also have another feeling sometimes kind of in the back there that is a little bit of a feeling of excitement. It's the excitement that there is so much potential. It's like looking at it and knowing that I have so much road ahead of me. In a way, that's daunting, or it can be daunting. Any journey that you're looking at, so much road ahead of you. But it also can be exciting, because there's a long way and you get to settle in, I guess you could think of. It's going to be a long, long way. So you get to settle into what you're doing, enjoy the process, settle in for every step, the feeling of all that, the pain, the strain, the joy, everything. So thank you for following the journey, and follow for the next one.